My name is Jason Rinaldi. This is Project 1, a analysis of Africa's Great Civilizations 6-part documentary series. I chose to look at Part 1 and Part 4 of the documentary series Africa's Great Civilizations. Part 1 focused on the origins of not only life on the African continent, but the origins of our species, and how from Africa, the race of Homo sapiens grew into what we know as human beings today. The narrator and author of this documentary series, Henry Louis Gates Jr., summed up this part beautifully in his opening line, saying, "No matter what we look like today, we all descended from ancestors on the African continent." And with a history that spans over 200,000 years, it's easy to see why. Africa's Great Rift Valley provided the perfect conditions for life to thrive for such individuals like Idaltu, a Homo sapien whose skull was found there and estimated to be about 160,000 years old, showing signs of anatomically modern humans even then. And what scientists call mitochondrial Eve, believed to be the ancestral genetic mother of us all. However, while the conditions were great for Homo sapiens to thrive, it also allowed other creatures to thrive as well, with one anthropologist from the documentary likening the life of early Homo sapiens to modern-day post-apocalyptic shows, such as The Walking Dead or video games like The Last of Us, with humans traveling in small packs trying to survive other predators and also other humans. As the hunter-gatherer lifestyle declined and humans switched to a more agricultural lifestyle, suddenly we see the introduction of art, found in such places as the Blombos Caves near the southern tip of South Africa, and the developments of independent writing systems found in the Tomb of the Scorpion King, simultaneously with Mesopotamian cuneiform. As a result, the Dark Continent didn't seem so dark after all. Nowhere was this splendor more evident than along the Nile River, with such cities as Egypt in the northeast, and Kerma in modern Sudan, and Kush in modern-day Nubia, located near the middle of the Nile. Trade among these cities was crucial. In fact, Egypt relied on Kerma and Kush for the gold that would adorn their sarcophagi and the regalia of the royals and elite. However, trade of information led to something very interesting when the Egyptians introduced the practice of their prime deity, Amun, to the Kushites, who would adopt the deity into their own culture to the point that it would fully assimilate into their worship. This led to the belief by some, such as King Dia of Kush, a devout follower of Amun, to wage war on Egypt because he believed that they had lost their way and falsely praised Amun. This belief drove King Dia of the Kush to conquer Egypt as far as the Nile River Delta, and as a result was crowned pharaoh of Egypt and Kush. Thus the Nubian ruler brought stability back to Egypt and brought about the rule of the Black Pharaohs of the Nile, which would be the 25th dynasty of rulers in Egypt. Interestingly, this brings us to a comparison with Part 4 of the documentary series. In Part 4, the focus was on African cities, such as Swahili, that inhabited the eastern coast spanning from Somalia to Mozambique. Kilwa, the city of splendor located on the south of the trade winds that in his epic poem Paradise Lost, John Milton called one of the world's greatest cities. Great Zimbabwe, which was like Africa's El Dorado because of its mystery and tales of gold, with its location along the trade routes to the eastern coast, making it a hub for gold and ivory. Benin City, which would produce amazing artistic feats such as the bronze statues that they would become known for, and walls around the city that are known as the largest monument in the world. And Ethiopia, who stands as one of the oldest places where Christianity has been practiced, with impressive cities like Gondar that would lead to a cultural and artistic explosion. There is one major similarity between these two parts, and that's the introduction and assimilation of religion of one culture into another. This we find on the eastern coast of Africa, when Arab traders brought Islam and changed the culture of the Swahili. Much like when the Egyptians brought the teachings of Aman to the Kushites, the Swahili took the teachings of Islam and, to quote the documentary, Swahiliized it. The Swahili used Islam as a faith, but also as a way to improve trade and allowed them access to the elite's trade networks. They learned Arabic to read the Quran, but also to record their history and advance their culture. Many of the Islamic traditions were adopted into the Swahili culture and became an integral part of their own society and traditions. This diffusion and assimilation of religion is so interesting when both of these instances occurred hundreds of years apart. And yet, in both occurrences, the society which took the aspects of religion from another and made it their own formed their own hybrid traditions, which affected their culture. While there were similarities in these parts, they also showcased a rich history that spanned hundreds of thousands of years. So while in Part 4, there was the rise and fall of great cities, in Part 1, these cities were just forming, or if they were developing new ways to farm and discovering how to smelt iron in order to improve their lives.